Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Hey, Heather.
Hey there, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Hi, Heather.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Nice to see you too. It's glad to all get together.
Yeah.
From very far away and yet together.
Exactly. Well, so thank you for being here, and we really appreciate you, taking the time to talk with us. And we're really excited to hear some, Land Cruiser stories and your history of Land Cruisers, and some history and info about the TLCA. And so, thank you again. We really appreciate it for being here.
Absolutely.
And
I'm happy to be here.
yeah, and thank you to all the viewers watching live right now, and to the other. Oh my gosh, on my teeth. People who watch later. Nice. Anyways, Dave,
Yes. So I want to start off with how did you get into the world of Land Cruisers, Heather?
Well, so interesting story. When I was living back in Atlanta, I lived in Atlanta for 15 years. My brother and I were actually on a double date. And we drove past one of those buy here, pay here lots, where people put their stuff up for sale. And there was a red 60 sitting there. And he looked and he's like, I've always wanted one of those. I'm going to go back and look at that tomorrow. And so he did. And he brought it home. And he got involved with a now defunct chapter of TLCA, Georgia Cruisers. And I started to go to some of the meetings. And so we've always been outdoorsy, right? Camping and things like that. So I started going to some of the events, and then a couple of the folks let me drive, and then all of a sudden I was bit, and I started. My first Land Cruiser wasn't a Land Cruiser. Well, it is a Land Cruiser, but whatever. We can argue that later. An FJ Cruiser. So because I didn't have any mechanical ability. I had never worked on trucks before. I'd done like home stuff, and I'm pretty handy. But I didn't want to take on a big project. So I wanted something that was kind of out of the box. So that's how it got started. And then it kind of went from there.
Nice.
Cool.
Tell us about what you have in your garage now. What rigs do you own?
Well, on the Land Cruiser side of things, I have a 1974 FJ40, which is currently in pieces in my garage, as many of us do. I have a 1984 FJ60. I have a 1990 FZJ73, and I have a Tundra. So those are the Land Cruisers, or the Toyotas. And then I have a race buggy. I do when I have time, I do We Rock. So I also have a purpose-built buggy for that.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's quite stable.
Yeah, people in my neighborhood are kind of because I live kind of close to downtown Houston, so thank God I've got good neighbors. But people in my neighborhood are like, "Oh, that's the Land Cruiser house." I have people stopping by just because it's pretty entertaining.
That's great. Do you cycle? Do you drive them pretty equally, or do you I guess the ones that are not in parts?
I cycle the 73 and the 60 and the Tundra. Oh, I forgot one. I also have a 1978 40 that lives in California. I forgot one. That's a dedicated trail rig. That's a big 40 on 40. So it's kind of like a buggy almost. But yeah, I cycle the daily drivers. I drive depending on what's going on and whether or not my air conditioning is working in one of them or not. So I live in Houston. It's hot, so that's kind of a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Having a 40 in California is a common thing. Chase, you have a 40 stored in California as well, don't you?
I do have one stuck in California, but for different reasons, probably.
Share that story.
Oh, well, yeah, that one was that was the first vehicle I ever owned in high school. So I was looking for my first car to buy, and this Land Cruiser popped up in the classifieds, and it was in the next town over. So I went and bought it against my parents' wishes. It had no seat belts, no doors. It was kind of a janky roll bar. Anyways, but yeah, I had that car for 10 years, and I sold it. And then I saw it. I was looking at Craigslist dangerously for FJ40s, and sure enough, the same rig popped up, and I had to buy it. It was still in California, so it needed a lot of work. So that's why it's still in California. But anyways,
You'll get it back. You'll
For-
get it to you someday, won't you?
Someday I'll get it roadworthy and back up to Seattle. The goal is to get it roadworthy and drive it up. I don't want to ship it. I want to do the drive.
You need to get together a whole group of people to help you get it done sometime. And we've done that for multiple members before, and love doing it. That's part of the TLCA thing that I really enjoy is we'll all get together and work on a rig. And actually, this month in Toyota Trails, which should be getting to everybody here pretty soon, there's a story written by Ben Draper about him coming to Texas to pick up a 60 that he bought in San Antonio, and we had a weekend where we got it roadworthy after it sat for 18 years, and then he drove it from Houston back to California. So when you get your Toyota Trails, read that. It's pretty entertaining.
Nice. We'll look forward to that. So one thing we wanted to ask you about when you're doing some digging, we found this cool old article from 2017 that showed a pretty heavily modified 40 driving through some floodwaters in Houston. And it said the owner was you. So can you tell us about how, that?
It was me. So actually that's the truck that's in California now. It's a big green 40 that I affectionately call Kermit. And so that was during Harvey in 2017. And as I think a lot of folks know, we had extreme flooding here that year. A hurricane basically parked over us and dumped feet of water on us. And I got a call, I guess it was probably the second day, and floodwaters were still rising. And I got a call actually from my son's baseball coach. He had like 3 or 4. And he said, hey, 2 of the coaches live down by the bayou, which in Houston words is kind of like this paved concrete thing that swells up over its banks quite often. But and they can't get out. And they had their kids, their dogs, everything, and they weren't able to get out, and the water was coming fast. So they asked if I was able to help. So we jumped in the 40, jumped in Kermit, threw a kayak and a paddle board on top, and headed towards the bayou. We could get close. We couldn't get all the way in because it was kind of topping at where I was uncomfortable. So I stopped. They took the paddle board and the kayak in, and it took them a while. So in the meantime, there were people walking towards us, like constantly. So I just started picking people up and driving them out. And after a while, I don't know how many people, I had a boat somebody gave me. So I was towing the boat with people in it, with people in the truck, and running back and forth up this street to try and get them to dry land. And then we finished that. And then as we were kind of going back, people would stop us. And this gentleman stopped us and he said, my daughter's stuck. She's 40 weeks pregnant. And we can't get her out. Is there any way you can help? Well, yeah, of course we can. So we pitched everybody that we had, made sure that they were safe, and ran in and tried to get her, and we did. So wow. It was pretty interesting. So I didn't know I was being filmed at all. So all of a sudden somebody posted on Facebook and said, Heather, you're on the news. I was like, what? So anyway, it was an interesting time. It was fun. I mean, we're glad. I was happy to help. So, and that's kind of part of the reason why I love doing this kind of stuff is that, everybody helps each other, and there's nobody that wouldn't have at that point. So it was good.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. Did they give you like the key to the city?
No, listen. It was the people of Houston pulled together to deal with that issue, and I mean, we were without power for close to a week. Everybody had to do their part. We had a guy in the neighborhood who had a deuce and a half that was running around collecting supplies, so we had a supply drive, and everybody had to pitch in because there wasn't enough public help to be able to get everybody situated. So it was an interesting time, but everybody pulled through and did a good job.
That's awesome. Well, kudos. I mean, that's
well,
such a cool story. I love, yeah. I was so happy when I found that picture. I was like, no way. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And in a giant 40.
In a giant 40. And when one of the things that I'm trying to do with TLCA is trying to reward people who do things like that, because I feel like there's so much good that we can do. when we go out and we go wheeling, there's a lot of bad name calling and things that happen. And I feel like TLCA, and sorry about the birds, by the way, for some reason, just as we got started, this bird like parked on my roof. So I'm gonna shoot a blue jay here in a minute. Anyway, but that one of the things I'm trying to do is to recognize people who give back to community. And I know that, not everybody can drive across the country or fly across the country to go to one of our events, right? And I'm really fortunate that I travel a lot for work, so I'm able to move around a lot more, but not everybody can. So we've just instituted a grant program where either chapters or representatives can nominate someone else who has done something fantastic, who has helped out in their community, who has maybe fallen on hard times, but so can't get out and do what they enjoy, to sponsor them to come to one of the events that's not in their immediate area. So, fly out to Rubathon, or, if they're out west, come over to the Great Smoky Mountain Trail Ride, or, do their Southern Cruiser Crawl or something like that. So, and that's kind of that whole experience kind of inspired me to do that, because I think there's a lot of good that we can do. And so trying to both reward those folks and also encourage people to use their powers for good and not evil.
That's fantastic. Wow, that's really cool.
Thanks.
So
well, let's talk more about TLCA.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Yeah, can you tell us your, how you got into the TLCA and I guess your path to the presidency?
So I joined TLCA when I bought the FJ Cruiser, and actually the first event that I went to was the Great Smoky Mountain Trail Ride years ago, when it was at Tlca, which was in the Nantahala National Forest in North Carolina, Tennessee, and I came across the FJ Cruiser trail teams. Actually, it was like right when they got started. It was such a warm welcome, and everybody was so nice, and sit around the campfire and talk and enjoy myself. And the camping part and everything, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So I immediately joined, and I was part of 2 chapters, Upstate Cruisers and Georgia Cruisers, which is gone right now. But and then I kind of got involved in that, and I was the land use officer. My background is in environmental consulting. So I used to do anyway, a lot of work with the National Environmental Policy Act, which is basically permitting, and for many different things. But I know the process, and I knew the Forest Service process. So helped Blue Ribbon Coalition and Southeast 4-wheel drive to try and fight that Tlca closure. So I got really involved there. And then that turned into, many years later, I was asked to be the individual representative for the Central region, so right up the middle. And this is after I've moved to Houston. Did that for, I think, 4 years. And then Ross Woody, who's our outgoing president, came to me a couple of years ago and said, hey, why don't you think about whether or not you want to run for president? And I was kind of, flabbergasted, honestly, that he would ask. But I was flattered, and a couple of the folks at Rubathon that year talked to me about it, and I said, all right, I'll think about it. Busy, 2 kids, job, all those things. And then I really started thinking about it, and I'm so interested in trying to grow the organization so that we can do more good, that I felt like it was going to be a really positive thing if I was able to jump in. So I did. They very kindly elected me last December, and I took over in January. So we've been having a good time making some changes, not big things, but just kind of updating the group a little bit, changing times, weird Land Cruiser times since we're not getting a 300. What are you going to do? Where's your base going to come from if you don't have Land Cruisers anymore?
Right.
It's a challenging time, but it's a good time.
How has being part of TLCA, initially as a member and now as president, impacted you as a Land Cruiser owner and an enthusiast?
Well, I'll tell you this: it's only, my love for Land Cruisers has only grown, and I'll say that I think that I've learned so much through the chapters that I've been involved with, as well as I Hate Mud and all of the different resources that are out there for Land Cruiser owners. I went from only wanting to have an FJ Cruiser because I didn't know how to work on a truck to actually wrenching myself. I actually spent 3 years while I was pregnant with 2 children restoring a truck and learning that way just by myself. So it really inspired me to get into kind of the more classic ones. And I'm so glad that I did because I love them to death. And I feel so much more confident now about, think about it, you're a woman and, and you're pregnant out to here, right? And you've got to figure out how to fix a truck. It's kind of like, what do you do? And I had so much help from everybody learning how to do it, coming over to the house and showing me, helping me find parts. It took me 2 full years to source all the stuff to fix that thing. And it fundamentally changed my life. And I don't say that lightly because now, I don't know what I would do without it, to be honest, because I enjoy all the people and the activities and the events and all those things so much.
That's wonderful.
I'm just imagining like the work that I've done with the rusty 75 in the background here, and I just can't imagine like squeezing underneath the car with a big belly and getting rust dust in my eyes.
So there's a picture somewhere, and I don't know where it went because this was back in 2008 or 2010. I don't remember which kid it was, but I was underneath the truck and I couldn't get any further because I was bumping up against it because I was so pregnant. It was ridiculous. It was so funny. But you know what? Necessity, right? So you figure out ways to deal with things. I had no idea how much I could accomplish with my feet. I'm not kidding either, because I couldn't get places, and my legs are longer. So it was a lot of fun. Great memories.
That's funny. That's super funny. Well, you touched on something, and I want to try and go back to it a little bit. You talked about the 300 series, and you kind of insinuated a little bit about membership with TLCA if there's not going to be a Land Cruiser. So what are some of the vehicle requirements in order to be a member of TLCA?
Well, it's really pretty easy. It's Toyota 4x4s with a transfer case, right? So it can be a mini truck, it can be a Tacoma, it can be a FJ Cruiser, it can be a GX, because remember Lexus are our friends too, right? It can be an LX, it can be any of them. It just has to have a dedicated transfer case. So other than that, it's everything. And I know, Toyota Land Cruiser Association, the name, right? It kind of lends itself to the Land Cruisers, but realistically speaking, especially now, we're going to need to figure out how the Forerunners can join us and, whatnot. And actually, we're getting, I think probably last time I looked, most new members we have are Forerunners and 200 series.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that makes sense though.
Do you think there's or have you all noticed a lag time between when the Land Cruisers first come out and then when you have like a majority of the people joining from that series? I mean, I know they've been coming increasingly expensive, so I don't know if they have to get old enough where people are brave enough to start modifying.
Like a 10-year span where they're depreciate enough that they're accessible to people.
Right.
Yeah. You know what? Back when I joined, everybody thought that the 80 series was the biggest rolling couch ever. They're like, that's not a real Land Cruiser. Right. And then time passed and then the 100 came out and they're like, oh, IFS, that thing's just, oh, that's not a real Land Cruiser. Well, yes, it is. And now, you have the 200, and then the FJ Cruiser. So everybody argued about whether or not that was a Land Cruiser. It doesn't matter. You can still be part of TLCA. And then, with the 200, we're just now seeing a kind of a bump. I think it does. I think you have to wait a little while because, I mean, who wants to take a $90,000 or whatever it is, truck out there and beat the crap out of it? Now it's done, mind you. And I give, people who do that huge kudos for the cojones that they have to do it. I think that's great. And have at it. But I do think that it takes some time.
I'll ride shotgun and I'll film everything. If anybody wants to take a 200 or 300 series when that Lexus version comes out.
That's right. So we've had, I know that on the Rubicon, I know there's been multiple 200 series that have made it through. I think they're probably up to like 5, 7. I don't know. Somebody will probably tell me. But I don't know how many, but they are. I mean, we had one this year that we saw at Rubicon at our event.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Rubicon. I wanted to ask you, how did that event go? How was the experience?
Rubathon is our yearly event for TLCA, and of course we have events all over the place, right? And TLCA helps with insurance and the local chapters and clubs to get those set. But Rubathon is ours, right? It's the club's event. This year coming out, we didn't have it last year, as we all know why. Bad. I'm not going to say that, but we didn't have it. So this year was the first year back. We had to make a few changes because California is a little bit weird about things, and we didn't know how open the state was going to be. So it was a little modified, but we still had great turnout. I don't know what the final total was. I'd have to ask Ross. He jumped in and was actually the chair for us this year. So I'd have to ask him what the total numbers were, but it was a good turnout. Everybody had a really great time. It's the first time I took my daughter. She's 13. And she had a blast. We had such a good time. She drove a lot.
Nice.
So we were trying to pass that down to her. So had a blast. It's nice because it's a family event, but you also have time to, go off and kind of do your thing too. So I honestly, I've been going for, I think this is my 8th year.
Wow.
And I try to make it every year because it is really that much fun. It's very different wheeling in the West than it is wheeling in the central and east part of the country because of the big open spaces and public land. We don't have that so much here.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, I totally understand, your daughter loving it. My daughter, she's 5, but she loves our blue Land Cruiser wagon. It's already hers, and she loves going in it. She'll come out and hug it every now and then.
Oh.
So it's really funny how they get attached, but that's
They
great to
do.
hear.
They really do.
Yeah.
Actually, the 74 that's in the garage is supposed to be hers. I bought that, I guess it was 7 years ago with the intention of working on it with her, and I just haven't really gotten around to it because all the other projects seem to keep getting in the way.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us have the same problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There are a couple of questions here. It looks like somebody wants to know what the wall decoration is in the background behind you, I think, Heather.
Oh. Let me duck. Hold on. So this is I don't know if I can get my phone up there, but this is the fender from an FJ40. And that is a piece of wall art that was created by Butch Baker, who is the president of Lone Star Land Cruisers. And Butch makes these for people, but he also does them as we usually do auction or raffle items at the Lone Star Land Cruiser Roundup and some of the other events around here to raise money for charity. And so Butch made me that one, and so it's hanging out on my wall outside.
That's pretty
There's
sweet.
another question about the Rubathon. Is there a YouTube video of the event or anything that people can look at to kind of catch up on what that event's like?
You know what? If you go onto YouTube and you actually Google or not Google, you actually look up Rubathon with a T, so it's Rubicon but with a TH. If you look that up, there's a number of videos out there that people have filmed over the years that you can take a look at. Now the trail changes a little bit every year because of weather, and it depends on whether the Jeepers Jamboree has like paved everything, because they have a tendency to make things a little bit easier. Not saying anything, but so but yeah, you can go in and you can look at a lot of that stuff on YouTube.
Nice.
So how did your rig perform this year in Rubathon?
I had no
Were you-
issues.
Nice.
Yeah, I had no issues. It did a good job. Now I'm gonna full disclosure. That truck is like I said, I think it's 1978, but it's on Dana 60s, and it has a 5.3 in it. So there's not a lot of it that's Toyota right now. But that was kind of my first wheeling rig. So that's why it stays out there. It's a perfect Rubicon rig for me. It's relatively point and shoot. It was great for my daughter to drive. We did everything. It did everything I asked it to. So yeah, it was really good. It was a lot of fun.
That's super cool. And you had
My
Georgia
first,
Valley Hybrids do the. Oh, sorry.
My first driving instruction was in a parking lot in a minivan. So I'm very jealous of your daughter's first time driving experience.
Yeah, she wins. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. So what other are there any specific I guess experiences with TLC that's really stood out for you over time? Any really, risen to the top as, you know, I don't know,
Kind of the
memory?
best of times kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
There's a couple of we talked about Rubathon, and that's certainly an event that I don't want to miss. But there's also a couple other events that I go to every year that I really like, and I'll give a little shout out to Cottonland Cruisers. They put on Southern Cruiser Call. It's in Hot Springs, Arkansas. It's a fantastic event, and it's very family friendly. There's bands, there's food. It's a great park. It's usually the highlight of the year. And of course, I have to say Roundup is also one of my favorites, just because I've been the chair for the past couple of years, so I better say that. But it is a lot of fun. So the events are definitely a high point for me. But I think the other thing is, and to go back to, we talked about Ben and Project Wrong Way. Having so many friends that are part of the Land Cruiser community, and the how much everybody helps each other. It has to be the number one thing, because Ben came from 2,000 miles or 1,800 miles away, right, to get this truck done. I can do exactly the same thing, and do something in California, and I guarantee you there's going to be a group of people that are going to want to help, and I'd come back with what I needed to do. The vendors that we have that are business members, the help. I heard somebody say George Esther earlier. The help that we get from them. It's just amazing to me. So, I mean, we can be a little rough around the edges sometimes if you post up a stupid question, but generally speaking, you're going to get the answer that you need. So that's probably the biggest thing for me, is the people and kind of the family that we've created around TLCA.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the community has been amazing, and even the community here in Seattle, Dave and the other cruiser heads here, it's wonderful. I mean, you really feel like you have a group of friends. You can all get together and help each other troubleshoot or knock out a bunch of projects at once.
Instantaneously,
so nice.
too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter anything. Nothing matters except for you've got this one thing in common. And automatically you're talking about the truck and the year and the this and the that and the whatever. And I've never seen anything that brings together people from disparate parts of the country and everything else like this does. And I think most people would agree with me. I mean, some people might not, but from my experience, that's been true.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Along the lines of people with the TLCA, do they collect any info or demographics on the different types of owners? Is there any focus on or efforts to increase diversity within the membership?
Well, so we actually used to collect demographic information, but we're kind of careful about what we collect, because we don't want to be that group that gets caught selling stuff, or people accuse us of that. So we're pretty careful about what we collect. What I can say is that I think that about 20% of our members are women, and that's higher than it has been for a while. But I would say that the average age of our member is over 40. So we do have, I will say, no offense to people who are over 40, because I sure am, but we have a little bit of an aging population. So one of the things that I'm trying to do, in addition to diversity of, getting more women, joining, I'd also like to see some of the newer models pick up a little bit, right? The Forerunners and the GXs and whatnot. So we want a little bit of diversity as far as the trucks too. So the answer is yes. And actually this year, just recently, TLCA has become a sponsor of one of the teams racing in the Rebel Rally. So Anna and Rebecca are Team 105. Rebecca lives here in Texas, and Anna's, I don't remember where she is, but they're going to be driving an FJ Cruiser, and their chase truck is a 200 series. So we're
Sweet.
gold sponsors for them. We wanted to kind of put our name out there, attached with the women who are going to be racing that race. So I am going to try and diversify a little bit, and because I think that we should.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Rebel Rally. If what is that exactly for people who may not know?
Okay, so Rebel Rally is a race that is all women. It's in the deserts of California and Nevada, and it's a race that they have to navigate through checkpoints to the end, and they cannot use any electronics. So they have to navigate with maps and compasses. So one is a driver and one is the navigator, and they catch points and stuff as they go. It's put on every year, and I don't know how many teams are this year. Honestly, I thought about it. But it's, unfortunately, I've got that pesky thing called a job, so I can't go just running around doing whatever I want to all the time. So, but it's a really cool event. And you can actually, their webpage is just rebelrally.com, and you can check that out.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn, because I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they were talking about a team that was entering, and I was surprised. I knew it was a multi-day event, but I didn't realize that it was like a 1,600-mile, almost entirely self-supported off-road event. Sometimes, yep, you have a base camp and you'll go out and kind of come back, but that's pretty impressive to think of the scale that anyone would have to take on, and just how nowadays how connected we are to digital technology, and just being able to get directions, the easy button. Tell me where to go.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Honestly, it's terrifying to me. I was like, I'm going to have to be the driver, because there's no way I'm going to be able to do that navigating thing. Like, I can get my way around pretty well, but I usually have Waze or something telling me what to do. So it's but I mean, you have to train for it, and you really have to figure out how you're going to deal with situations, because I'm sure people get lost. I mean, it's obviously they have safeguards for that, so they're not like lost forever. But it's a challenge for sure. I'm in awe of the women that can do it. I think it's fantastic.
We've got a couple of questions popped up regarding Toyota and TLCA. Is there any kind of connection there? Can you throw some weight around and try and not get the Land Cruiser canceled?
Yeah, no, I can't. But the answer is yes. So we have multiple points of contact with Toyota. So I've been talking with their R&D group a little bit. Toyota is really interested in hearing from organizations that use their products about what they're looking for and what they like. And so Toyota is actually going to make an effort to attend a number of our events, not necessarily to show off a new thing, which they have done, right? So the new Tacoma came out. They came to the Toyota Trail Riders Lone Star, the Jamboree in Gilmer, Texas with it. Actually, Ivan Stewart was out that year for Toyota. There was a bunch of kind of hoopla all around it. So that was great. But this time, they're really just kind of low key, wanting to just come to the events and talk to people, which I think is fantastic, because that kind of indicates that they're obviously still interested, and hopefully maybe we can all talk them into something. So that's good. And then we have a number of people that are involved with the club who work for Toyota as well. So we do have some connections with Toyota. They also advertise in our Toyota Trails magazine every issue, and have for years. So I'm not going to tell you that it's like it's not like we're in lockstep, but we do have connections, and we do talk.
You don't have like Monday conference calls on Zoom with coffee and like, what are you guys working on this week? Oh,
with
cool.
the chairman. Hey, just checking in. No.
Number one question: why isn't the 70 series here?
Right? No kidding. No kidding.
Yeah, that's funny.
Well, quick question about you. Obviously, you're president of TLCA. So, what are some of the vision, directions, things you'd like to go, or places you'd like to take TLCA while you're involved?
So right now we've got about 4,000 members, and I would like to see that double. And the reason for that isn't because I want to have just this giant organization. It's because the more members that we have, frankly, the more good we can do. So I talked about the grant, right? That for the travel grant for deserving members. We also instituted some land use grants for clubs that are doing projects in their general area. So we just awarded our first two, one to Capital Land Cruisers for some equipment that they needed to work on trails with the Forest Service. They needed like chaps for chainsaws and things like that. And then one to the Kentucky Land Cruiser, Toyota Land Cruiser Association for signage on their Daniel Boone Back the Byway project. So they're going to put up signs, which help people stay the trail. So I said earlier, I'm an environmental consultant, and that's something that's, you know, really close to my heart. I was also a tread trainer for, or a master tread trainer for trails, whatever that is. And so the environmental stuff and the land use stuff is something that's really interesting to me. So I'd like to be able to raise more money, to be able to give more money away, frankly, to keep trails open, to help communities that need it, to be able to, you know, do some things that we haven't really been able to do before. So that's one thing that I would really like to do. So hopefully that'll work. We'll see. It's going to take a lot. So everybody who's listening and hasn't joined, that's you I'm talking to. So that's what.
Yeah, I just rejoined after an absence. I initially signed up when I was in high school, and then I had the 40, and then I let it lapse when I sold the 40. But you know, and then I got back into Land Cruisers. I was happy to rejoin, and I found my old crusty card in my wallet. I was really happy.
Oh, good. You can get your number back. I hope you got your number back, because you can.
I did. Yeah, I was really happy to see
good.
that. I was worried I would lose it, but
yeah, our member services.
You saved all the information.
Good. Yes, we do. So our member services is Carrie Farr, and she does a great job at making sure that if you remember before, you can get your old number back.
Yeah, I was really happy about that. I mean, I remember first signing up in high school and getting the first Toyota Trails, and I was so happy. It was so awesome to get that magazine.
Well, welcome back.
It's high quality, and yeah.
Yeah, Trails is a great. I mean, you know, when you think about it, people ask a lot about, you know, what they get for their membership, and you know, to be honest, if you're going to get a high quality, you know, magazine, you're going to pay $35-40, you know, a year anyway to do it. So, you know, if you get a first class membership, which is $45, if you're in the US, you know, the magazine is great, but your money also goes to, you know, other things too. So, you know, like I said, the newest Trails is just out probably this week. It should be hitting mailboxes here anytime soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the value for the money is great.
Yeah.
One of the other benefits that you talked about earlier is just the network of community too. Like the fact that somebody could post on Facebook, I'm considering buying this car, but it hasn't run in 20 years. And then, you know, obviously fund parts and whatnot, but to have like a pretty big rally, I believe it was at your house where there was a lot of the work done. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So it was in San Antonio, which is about 3 hours from me. So I ran over there with my trailer and picked it up and brought it back. And then I won't give too much away from the article, but we had some friends fly in to help. So maybe a little Valley Hybrids help there too. So it was a lot of fun. Ben is hysterical. And when y'all read that article, it's hilarious. And for people who haven't joined yet, you can get part of the magazine on the website. So at tlca.org, you can actually go on there and hit Toyota Trails, and there's like a you know, a teaser, if you will, so you can read parts of the magazine. So if you want to see what it's like, you can do that.
That's awesome.
So, and maybe you've already covered this, but are there other maybe lesser known, you know, efforts or activities TLCA is undertaking right now that people should know about or that you can talk about?
Yeah, you know, not a whole lot. I think we've covered a lot of it. You know, there's some internal stuff that we're doing. TLCA was formed in 1979 in California. It's not 1979 anymore. So we're going through and we're kind of updating our bylaws and our operating procedures and kind of modernizing things a little bit. That's one of the first things that I kind of wanted to do, because I want to make sure that we're moving with the times, because frankly, it's not that we haven't, it's just that, you know, there was no need to, right? And I think that now there is. You know, we want to get younger folks involved, we want to get the kids involved, we want to get, you know, people who are interested in the, you know, hell, I want to get GXOR involved. It's my brother and he runs GXOR, and I'm after him for to try and, you know, bump up my membership with the members of GXOR, because we want everybody to be part of this. So that's really it. There's not a ton of, you know, kind of, and there's really no secret stuff, right? So we all get together as an executive board, and then we have a meeting with our chapter representatives once a month. You know, we talk about everything. We have new business, we have old business. Everything's run, you know, pretty well. And so, you know, not a lot of secrets here.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Heather, I had a question regarding membership. You talked about trying to get younger kind of folks or families into TLCA. I'm a member. I don't know personally if is there a family membership, like my 6-year-old, that I can kind of get him somehow involved, some little card or something like that?
You know, I don't know that we have a little card. You know, we have the first class membership, but I think that's for each RIT. But I think it's a family thing. I can ask Carrie, our member services person. But, you know, the other thing is if people want that, then that would be something, you know, so that the kids can have their own little card and they can be members. You know, we can certainly look into that. And truly any ideas like that people have, they're welcome to send them to me. My email is president at tlca.org. So people can send me a note, you know, with ideas like that, and we'll certainly take that into consideration. So, but it's kind of cool. I kind of like that. I think my daughter would like it too. Although I should probably just buy her a membership.
Yeah, I'm like
theoretically has a truck.
Channeling my younger childhood camping and going to like all the different state park campgrounds. There's all the little ranger programs or something like that.
Badges, yeah.
That might be some way to get them involved like that. Do you come up with some program like that?
That's a good idea. I'm writing that down. So just so you, because I don't forget. Big badge. Cool. Thank you.
All right. So I guess to switch gears a little bit into maybe some questions I like to ask a lot of our interviewees. But so the first one is there a rig that is, you know, it got away? Either you sold it too soon, or, you know, one you didn't purchase and you regret you didn't purchase, or?
Do you remember me telling you about that truck I was working on when I was pregnant? That was a red and white 1973 FJ55. And I bought that truck out of when I lived in Georgia from, I think it was the third owner, and went through all kinds of shenanigans to get that thing done. And when I moved to Houston, little kids, you know, new job, no air conditioning, blah, 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 blah. I was like, you know what? It's just dumb. I'm not using it. I'm just going to sell it. So I sold it. And I kick myself every day. Oh, I really wish I never would have. Now I know where it is. So yeah, so it's in Idaho, but engine blew up, and I think it's actually sitting at Jeremiah Prophet's shop right now getting a new engine. So I've told the new owner that I want first right of refusal. So maybe someday I'll get it back.
Nice.
It's dangerous knowing where it is.
I know, right?
That's a good clause to put in any like bill of sale.
Yeah, I want first. Well, I check in too. I send him a note on Facebook about once every 2 or 3 years. I'm like, so how's the Land Cruiser? I swear I'm not stalking you, really.
That's awesome.
Nice. Any dream cruisers that you would love to own, or?
You know, I'm pretty lucky. I've had a lot of cruisers in my life, and I used to have an 80, I used to have 100, I used to have the 55. So I've owned a lot. I've never had a 45. That would be kind of fun. But you know, I kind of want that 55 back. But I also, I guess, you know, I wouldn't mind having a 200 a daily drive. They're really nice for that. So you know, that wouldn't be bad. I wouldn't say it's a dream cruiser, but I kind of need to check that box, right? Because I haven't had a 200 yet. So, but you know, like I said, I'm fortunate that I've been able to have all the ones that I've had, and I'm pretty happy with what I've got right now.
So you've only been in the gas line of Toyota engines, right? Have you ever had a diesel?
Oh yeah, I have a diesel. I have an HZJ 73, so it has a 1HZ.
Oh,
And
okay.
and I'm actually getting ready in the fall to put in a standard shift. So we're putting an H55 in there because that A440 is just such a blah transmission. So I had one in my 80 and it sucks in there and it sucks in here. So we're gonna go ahead and put a different transmission in, and that'll change that quite a bit. But I love that truck. It's cute, it's smaller, right? The 70 series is utilitarian. I bought that a couple of years ago, and I have really, really enjoyed having that truck.
Did you go through an import service to get that, or did you just someone already had it in the country and you bought it, or?
No, I actually went through Steve Jackson at Land Cruisers Direct.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he had it already in the country. So funny story, I found myself with a little bit of a unplanned vacation. So I hooked up the trailer and drove to Missouri and picked it up, and it was a great trip because I met up with cruiser people kind of along the way visiting and then all the way back. So I took like 4 days or 5 days or something like that and just kind of made a trip. So it was and that probably means why it means a little bit to me too, is because it was an adventure, right? I had the adventure. I would drive until I got sleepy, find some dive to eat, and then get on my hotels.com app and find a place to sleep and hope I didn't die, and then get up in the morning and do it again. So
Nice.
That's awesome.
Chase and I have a shared trip to across the border to collect some Land Cruiser parts, and we've got some interesting stories of driving mountain passes with poor wipers, and then also getting rejected from the United States back into Canada because we didn't have appropriate documentation.
Yeah.
that's always a good time.
Yeah,
Out in the middle
yeah.
of nowhere, and then you can't come home.
They didn't like
It all
the
worked
diesel
out.
engine
It all
we
worked
had.
out.
They let us
You
back
know,
in.
it usually does work out, and that's we talked about things that TLC has done for me, and it's given me a lot of courage, to be honest with you. I mean, when you think about it, the kind of situations that you can get you're not dangerous ones, but you're out in the middle of nowhere, you're broken down, you're this, you're that, you're gonna be okay. You learn to live, you learn to deal with it. So I would say there's a lot of courage too that I've learned through doing all of this.
For sure.
Do you have a favorite breakdown story that you want to share with us? Or modification.
Or modification. So I have a breakdown story. I was driving the first thing I had was an FJ Cruiser, and I kind of lied. Earlier I had a 4Runner, and I wanted that thing so bad, and I bought it, and I was moving from Ohio, where I'm from, to Georgia, and I had to drive it, and it throttle cable broke. And so I was sitting on the side of the road, and I was having a fight with my boyfriend, and he was in another car, and he left my ass. And so I was sitting there, and I'm like, well, crap, now what am I going to do? So I had to fashion together some stuff to make it run. And did. I mean, you kind of had to figure it out because I had to go somewhere. So yeah, that was kind of interesting. But to my point about courage, all right, what do I got to do? Let's figure it out. And did what I had to do and managed to get home. So it was an interesting breakdown story, but made it.
Beautiful simplicity of the Toyota sometimes. It can make it work.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
So ask you about the 300 series we talked about. I mentioned it, but what do you personally think about the new, I guess, Lexus will get here, but Land Cruiser everyone else will get?
Yeah.
In other parts of the world.
I understand why Toyota is has made the Land Cruiser, at least in the United States, such a couch potato, because that's what people want. And the new engine is going to be good because they have to have less emissions in their portfolio, right? I mean, that's kind of part of the whole thing. I actually don't mind it. I think it looks kind of good. I know there's some that don't. It's a little boxy. It's kind of looks a little. People have compared it to some of the newer GM with the square front and whatever. I kind of like it. I think it's it's kind of nice to get a little makeover every once in a while. I mean, and realistically speaking, when you look back, like I said, so many years ago, everybody thought the 80 was terrible, and now have you checked out Bring a Trailer? Right? I mean, those things are going for ridiculous amounts of money. So I think it's just going to take time for people to get used to it, but I kind of like it.
Yeah. I'm with you. Yeah, all the new. I'm sure the '60s got haters from the '40s when they first came out. So, I'm sure we'll get used to it.
We will. And you know what? I don't know. I don't know for sure about what's going to happen with the Land Cruiser, but I just can't believe that it's gone forever. I maybe it's just wishful thinking, but I just can't believe that it's gone forever. I don't think they're going to bring the 70, and I don't think they're going to bring a diesel, but I have to think that at some point they're going to have to figure out the balance between luxury and cost and performance, and that's going to be a hard balance for them because not everybody can afford a $100,000 truck. Hell, most people can't afford a $100,000 truck.
Some of the numbers that I was hearing when people were discussing this is that the 200 series was being sold at about 3,000 units per year, which if you compare that in the U.S. right. But if you compare that to that's on par with some very, very high end luxury performance car manufacturers in terms of the number of quantities sold, which is just goes to show like how small the market truly is for the Land Cruiser in the United States in the current configuration that it is for the U.S. market.
Yeah, and I don't know what the numbers look like as it compares to like a Yukon or or whatever whatever they're called now. But I imagine it's quite a bit lower. But the price point's also different, right? So. It's a shame, but it's also, they're going to have to, like I said, they're going to have to figure it out, but I don't think it's gone forever. Fingers crossed anyway.
Yeah. It's still out there, right? In other parts of the world, but
it is for sure.
And the stripped down version of the 300 looked pretty cool too. So
yeah, it did, but they're going to have to figure out how to compete with Bronco and, Jeep's getting ready to do something. And, they're going to, I mean, I know they've got the 4Runner, and other platforms, but, the FJ Cruiser was a great truck, but it didn't quite hit that itch for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. So, it's either really, really work up that 4Runner, or, they're going to have to figure out whether or not they want to exit that whole segment, which I highly doubt.
Yeah.
I have hope, just based on the Supra kind of coming back, that Toyota, from an enthusiast standpoint, will recognize that there's an enthusiast market for the Land Cruiser and bring some configuration back under that title or badging. So that's my hope.
My hope too, and I hope that when they come out and join us at some of our events, that we're able to talk about it, and kind of help them understand why we would like to see something, and that we're not just going to be like negative Nancy's about everything. So,
right.
It's a tough crowd Land Cruiser owners.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
They all are very opinionated. Well, I want to know, as we try to go through the community and have these great conversations with people, we're trying to figure out who else we should be talking to and kind of doing these interviews with. So is there somebody who's mentored or inspired you that we should try to get in touch with and do an interview with?
Have y'all talked to Woody Swearingen from I Hate Mud?
He's on the list, but not yet.
All right, so I'll kick him in the butt. I think you should talk to him. So I met him back when I had my, I guess it's probably been, 15 years ago or something like that. And I joined I Hate Mud, basically at the same time I joined TLCA. And, his site and him personally have been really, well, he's been a great friend, and his wife have been good friends for a long time. But, anything you want to know about a Land Cruiser, you're going to find there, right? And I think that, kind of the beginning of that, and his story about how he started Mud, and where it started, and then how it became what it is, and kind of what he wanted out of that. I think that would be fascinating for people to hear. So he'd be somebody that I'd watch for sure.
Great.
All right.
Well, thank you so much. We've really, it's really been great talking to you. It's been great hearing these really cool stories about, your personal history with Land Cruisers and the amazing effort the TLCA, to support groups and individuals and, open access to land. So thank you for, taking the time to talk with us today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it. Y'all have been great. I appreciate the opportunity.
And, for anyone watching that is not signed up to be a TLCA member, you should definitely do it. Go to their website, become a member. It's really wonderful. It's worth it alone just for the amazing magazine you get, but you also end up supporting the different chapters, and you get that, that extra, access to the community and be a part of their amazing events. And so if anyone's on the fence or thinking about it, definitely go to the website and join. So highly recommend it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Around that, how do we get a Seattle chapter? Who do I need to talk to about making that a thing?
Rob Taggart. He's our individual rep for the western part of the country. I'll send you his email address.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you so much, Heather.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.